FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and, well, the swamp is getting swampier by the day. Impeachment underway. Well, can they do it? Will they do it? Are they in their right minds? Well, our good friend Frank Vernuccio is with us now. Frank, so it's getting crazy there in D.C., isn't it?
It is. Kerry, it's good to be with you again. As we were speaking off air, I mentioned that when I was in law school, there was a concept called Prima Facie, which means the thing speaks for itself. When a sitting vice president, who is the point man for a country like Ukraine and like China, brings his son along, and the son walks away with major bucks in his pocket from a deal with that country, well, that pretty clearly is prima facie evidence of corruption. And Kerry, it didn't happen just once. We're all talking a lot about Ukraine, which of course is the basis of the impeachment drive by the Democrats in the House of Representatives, but perhaps even more prominently, it happened in China. Hunter Biden flew along on Air Force Two with then Vice President Joe Biden and came back with $1.5 billion deal in his pocket from the Chinese on a business area that he had absolutely no expertise whatsoever in. What's amazing is that the media has decided, apparently, except for great programs like yours, to ignore the prima facie acts of corruption by Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and to intend somehow say this is something that President Trump should be impeached on because he asked the Ukrainian president to look into the matter. Terry, this is like if I knock over my local 7-Eleven and you report to the police that you saw me knocking over the 7-Eleven, that you get investigated by the police and not me. It is so absurd that it defies accurate description.
So I agree with you there. It's interesting. Talk about a classic case of projection for sure. But now we've also got something happening on the Durham front. He is effectively the special counsel who was appointed by Bill Barr to investigate the ruminations, the beginnings of the Russia hoax. And now he's found something, and supposedly he's got a grand jury impaneled. Or I didn't hear that, but I've heard it's gone from an investigation to a criminal investigation. What are your thoughts there?
Well, that's right. Apparently he came back, Durham did, from Italy with a lot of information about what exactly happened with the whole Russian collusion case. We've also heard that Australian authorities have been cooperating with Durham on investigating this matter as well. Look, let's be very blunt about this. The evidence is clear, and Mueller himself came up with it. There is no evidence of Russian collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, period. It held the country spellbound for 2.5 years while this was going on, all based on a document that was paid for by the Clinton campaign and given to a judge in a rather disreputable manner by authorities in the FBI with the collusion of ex-CIA Director John Brennan. Now, I don't know about you, Kerry, but it certainly makes me feel kind of icky to hear that an ex-CIA director and elements of the FBI worked together to overturn the results of a fair, free, and democratic election. That's what it really comes down to. Without getting too dramatic about this, it is not too far to say that this was a coup attempt. These folks dislike President Trump, didn't want to see him take office in the Oval White House, and literally misused all the powers and all the influence at their disposal to overturn the 2016 election. This deserves the full attention of the Department of Justice. Hopefully that will take place now.
I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. It's taken him 3 years to get this to this point, Frank. I mean, Bill Barr seems like he's doing the right things, but he was definitely Mr. Deep State when he was Bush's attorney general. Now he's a bit older, and as he said, he has nothing to lose. Do you think he's sincere?
I do. I think that Barr, whatever you might call him, Deep State or not, is a decent man. And I think the extent of this corruption, which the Russian collusion charge was, is so vast and so significant and so troubling for the future of the American Republic that I think any man of good intention who loves this country is going to do everything possible to uncover it and to prosecute the people who were involved in it. Now, let's understand something. This is not a case of first impression. Let's go back to the Obama administration. President Obama abused the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, to attack political opponents in the Tea Party. He then used his Department of Justice to attack people who simply disagreed with him on climate change. You might recall that conservative groups like the Competitive Enterprise Institute or the Mackinac Institute up in Michigan were subpoenaed and told that they had to give all sorts of records and engage in all sorts of legal shenanigans with the Department of Justice simply because they produced documents, they produced white papers that disagreed with the president. Think how significant that is. Now you simply produce a white paper. These aren't manufacturing companies. These organizations aren't building anything or selling anything. They simply are producing research papers. And for that, they had to engage with the Department of Justice. That is truly, truly significant. So there is a precedent. There is a modus operandi in the Obama administration to abuse federal agencies for partisan political purposes. It gives all the more credence to those who are saying that the Russian collusion charge was a clear attack on the Constitution, a clear attack on the results of the 2016 election.
So you think it's that nefarious, huh?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Financial Survival Network is brought to you today by Orin Resources, a junior exploration company with the appetite of a major. It's hot on the trail of the next globally significant discovery, creating enormous potential upside for you, the shareholder. Orin is one of the most aggressive exploration companies pursuing high-grade, scalable gold and copper deposits and has a premier 7-project portfolio, including its 2 flagships, Committee Bay in the Arctic and Sombrero in Peru. Orin's unparalleled technical team and highly experienced management has a history of success in advancing and monetizing exploration assets. No wonder Orin's been called one of the best in the junior exploration sector. Orin trades on the TSX and the NYSE under AUG. To learn more, go to orinresources.com. That's AURYN resources.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
It is as nefarious as it gets, abusing federal agencies for partisan purposes. I think we're going to see a lot. Now, I've served in both Democrat and Republican administrations, and I can tell you that something of this magnitude, such as the Russian collusion case, does not take place without the top people in government knowing about it, up to and including the Oval Office. One of the reasons you're seeing such hysteria on the part of the Democratic Party, including the phony Russian collusion charge, including the phony charge of corruption and attempts to impeach the president on the Ukraine, is a cover to take the public's attention away from the extraordinary and unprecedented corruption of the Obama administration and the people involved in it. This is, with the alliance of the media, it's distracting the American public's attention from what really went on in the Obama administration. Unfortunately, due to the proclivity of the press to ally themselves with the left, to ally themselves with the Democrats against the Republicans or against conservatives, it's really difficult to get to the bottom of it all in terms of letting the public know what's really going on.
Yeah, well, it would be nice to know. A lot of speculation, but we do know a lot already. Certain reporters have actually been practicing journalism, while others have been hiding their head in the sand like an ostrich, right?
Well, that's exactly right. And in fact, if you take a look at some of the key stories and the way they're covered, whenever there was a charge, and just a charge with no evidence behind it, and things like Russian collusion or the Ukraine situation, it's blasted on the headlines of major papers and major media centers, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC. When those charges are essentially refuted, you're lucky if you see it on page 47 underneath the hemorrhoid ads or on the last section of the television news at night. In some cases, it's not there at all. That really is very telling about what the media is all about.
Yeah, it is telling, isn't it? They're really not paying any attention to these things. What are they going to do if a string of indictments comes down? You know, when they do mention it, they say it's all Trump perverting the Justice Department, trying to exact revenge for things that he doesn't like that they've done, and just trying to take out the Democratic Party for the sake of it. It
reminds me of a friend of mine who ran for governor in New York State, and he once said that he could cure cancer in Macy's window at high noon, and the headline in the New York Times and the New York Daily News would be, candidate puts medical profession out of work.
Yeah, well, yeah, in film at 11, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
True. So true. I remember that one. And yeah, well, there's a downside to everything. Imagine if there was no crime. The country would have a major depression and people would have to turn to crime because we'd have millions of people out of work from the criminal justice system. Frank, right?
Well, it's interesting. Exactly. And it's interesting you're saying that because if you look at the coverage, for example, of the economy, we've never had lower unemployment in about 60 years. We've never, ever had lower Black and Latino unemployment. The economy is doing very well. Indeed, if Trump eventually wins his trade dispute with China, the economy is going to take off on a major level. But what you see in the news is that, well, a recession is right around the corner. Indeed, in pushing stories like that, what the media is attempting to do is actually create a recession. If you see that constantly on the evening news, if you see that constantly in the newspapers, essentially people will start looking at that. They might become frightened. They'll stop buying things. They'll stop buying houses. Employers will stop hiring. Investors will stop investing. And lo and behold, you've just created a recession just in time for the 2020 election.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Interesting here, Frank. What a tangled web we weave. Anyway, we have to run, but just tell us, where do we find your work and podcast, all that stuff?
Harry, thanks so much for asking. Go to www.usagovpolicy.com. We have a new research column up there 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, and we hope you all tune into it.
All right. Hey, appreciate you coming on. Look, any questions or comments?
Harry, keep up the great work. I look forward to our next discussion.
Absolutely. And hey, any questions for Frank, myself, email us kl@kerrylutz.com. Check out our website, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Frank, we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks so much.
Look forward to it, Kerry. Thanks so much.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.